D&D Dungeon Masters of Reddit, what is the most useless magical item you've ever given your party and how did they use it?
+3 Sword of Edward Tumbleton slain. Edward Tumbleton was a tailor in a nearby city. They discovered a sword that was very effective at killing him, just him. Neither the party, nor any other person on the planet had any reason to kill the guy. The party ended up killing him by blowing up his shop with a fireball. The sword was never used.
Gave my party a sash of swimming, retextured aquatic cummerbund. They put it on the donkey pulling their wagon and promptly forgot about it. I haven't though. 2 years later, I haven't.
Obligatory, not the DM, but our party's DM gave us a magical, mysterious bag. When we opened it, we pulled out a turtle. We reach in again, thinking there must be something else to this bag, we pull out a rabbit. Still thinking there must be something else, something more meaningful to this item, we reach in again, and pull out a 9 feet tall deer. It really was just a backpack that lets you pull out random animals. My bard proceeds to use speak with animals, then charms the deer to let us ride him. We named him Preston, and he's been our ridiculously massive means of transportation ever since.
Ring of Fire Detection. Ranged Touch.
I gave one of my players a delicious magical sandwich that regenerated itself each day as long as you didn't eat the crust. It didn't offer any benefits when you ate it, it was just an infinite sandwich. That sandwich became a character in and of itself. The amount of time that was spent talking about the sandwich, its contents, the flavor, etc. was crazy. Every player described how their character would ogle the sandwich whenever it was brought out. That character is gone for now, but she kept that sandwich right up until retirement. She spends her time in Candlekeep Library, devouring knowledge and also the sandwich.
I used to love making magical items that were off the wall. I felt like the game's items didn't reflect the silly stuff someone would make if they had the time and manic attention to detail. There's a devil called a chitin. It's a chain-wrapped, chain-swinging, freaky pain-loving Hellraiser type. My party fought one in a dungeon. He's wearing a unique amulet that makes chain. You place a piece of chain on the surface, and the amulet starts slowly, magically, generating a chain of the same dimensions. It only makes 10 feet a day, but over time you could make a few gold selling mundane chain. I just thought it was thematic and interesting. The party left the dungeon, went to town, found a smith, and poured their entire life savings into making 2 links of solid gold chain that would make Flava Flav weep. And I wept. What a fool I was.
Rod of Irony was a fishing rod that you could only find by fishing it up. Using it only fished up more rods of irony, used them for firewood.
A rope that couldn't be tied. Not even for a second. They were facing a dragon, who loved puzzles and eating non-dragons. They gave him the rope and made the deal that if the dragon couldn't make a knot within an hour, then the dragon would need to let them pass through.
My infamous Horn of Resounding Quacks was a hit, summoned any duck within a half-mile radius of the person using it. The party never went hungry after that.
They found a wand that creates a random and unique lock that incorporates itself into the substance it's used on. So it might make a suspicious recess in a stone wall or a brass-plated keyhole on a wooden door. If probed with lockpicks, you would encounter moving tumblers or some other appropriate but unique locking mechanism. The lock was still completely non-functional though. It didn't magically create a compartment, it just made a lock. Even if you used it on a desk drawer, it never made a latch or bolt. So the drawer would open perfectly fine, while having a useless metal cylinder with tumblers that weren't connected to anything. If you successfully picked the lock, it always felt like a real lock despite lacking the physical pieces. It would make a soft chiming noise and the lock would evaporate. The wand was a training tool used by a famous locksmith to challenge himself and his students. It had no practical application at all outside of that profession. It ended up being used by the druid, who had ranks in use magic device, don't ask, to constantly mess with the rogue. The druid would take every opportunity to wild shape into a small critter good for scouting and then place fake locks anywhere the rogue might conceivably try to use the search skill. The rogue's increasing paranoia whenever he found a lock and his overblown promises of vengeance every time a random hole in a floorboard wasted a minute of his time and chimed at him was a pretty good gag. It turned a little sour when the druid made an extra lock on an honest-to-goodness treasure chest. The rogue rolled a natural 20 to pick the first lock and got a chiming noise. Then he rolled a 3 and triggered an energy-draining trap that permanently lost him 5 horsepower. After that, the rogue stole every wand the druid had in the middle of the night and threw them all into a bottomless pit in the Underdark.
I had a magical red rubber duck. Gave it to the party as a joke item because they kept asking for weird shit. Not one of them chose to identify it. It was an artifact-level rubber duck. Once it was part of your inventory, it would never leave unless it wanted to. It had wisdom and intelligence of 28, sentience and could be attuned. Nobody learnt that it was probably the most powerful item in my game.
Not me as a DM, but early in 3E days my friend's older brother was DMing a game for my friends, my sister and me. One of the items we got was rolled on the random table was a gust of wind fan. It was exactly what it sounds like. Wave it, creates a powerful enough gust of wind to propel a boat and possibly rips itself to tatters. Threw it in the pack and forgot about it. A few sessions later we're defending a town from waves of invaders. The final boss is a Cyclops or an Eden or something. Big bruiser, we see it approaching, with enough time to prepare for its arrival. My sister asks us to all use our healing potions, then give her the glass vials, which we do. Then she turns to the DM and calmly explains how she takes the vials with her up a guard tower. She smashes and grinds them up, waits for an opportune time, then uses the fan to blow a gust of powdered glass particles into the Eden's eyes. The look on this man's face. A cross between, holy shit that's awesome, I'm so happy a story like this is in my campaign world now, and fuck, this boss was supposed to be difficult.
A Ring of Invisibility. Except by reading the fine print you understand that the ring itself turns invisible when you put it on and nothing else. They eventually sold it as a novelty to a traveling merchant.
In a game I am in currently, our DM gave us a flask of endless water. It can produce water in a trickle, a flood, or deluge that shoots 30 gallons of water in one turn. Our cleric has just fallen from a bridge over a chasm, and through clever bullshitting our sorcerer has managed to catch the falling cleric with a web spell. As we are all racking our brains to figure out a way to save them, our cleric pulls out the flask and uses the water cannon mode to propel herself back onto the bridge using the web strands as a fulcrum.
Once my party got a huge beautiful magic sword which was improperly identified as a sword of ogre slaying. Instead, it was a cursed sword of ogre saying. Whoever wielded it would only be able to yell, ogre, at things. Several adventures later they were attempting to catch a thief who was evading them. They came up with the brilliant idea of setting the sword as bait, and just going about their business. Sure enough, some time later they heard, ogre ogre ogre, ring out through the town and they caught him without consequence.
In my last campaign my player got a hammer that shoots confetti and makes a party blow a sound on crits. A dramatic moment happened where he had to put his pet owlbear down, as it was morphing into a monstrosity because of the BBEG. Because the creature was on the ground morphing, he auto-crit. The beast lies there, writhing in pain, trying to hold onto its own self for as long as possible. You lift your hammer solemnly in the air, feeling the weight of not only the weapon, but the situation. As you bring it down, you feel the flesh give as the skull has been pulverized from the transformation. The sound of teeth clacks against the ground echoing in the room around you. The party looks at the ground and a moment of silence consumes you all. Fief party popper 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 party popper. One of my one-shot campaigns had all players at 8th level, so I wanted to give them magical items but not too OP. So one of my monk players wanted a decanter of endless water, so I changed it to a homebrew version, where it didn't do the stream, fountain or geyser things but instead it would pour endless alcoholic beverages. He could make the decanter fill with mojitos or margaritas or a Heineken, whatever, but only to get drunk. I thought it was harmless and fine, until I realized he selected the way of the drunken master, and got drunk on command anywhere and everywhere. It was quite fun. I'm writing a new one-shot and I might take some ideas from this post too. !
Once have my party a magic spoon. It emitted a terrible aura of dark illusion magic, and merely holding it filled layers with a sense of dread from its sheer chaotic energy. Its in-game abilities, it worked like a fork instead of a spoon.
Was playing a campaign on a tropical island type of place and an enemy knocked my weapon off a cliff, so I used a coconut as an improvised weapon, crit with that thing 4 times in a row and decided to keep it for last, hitting people. Was a barbarian and the DM liked the coconut last hitting so much he had me keep track of the kills and I eventually had a +3 coconut that on a crit would ricochet until it didn't kill something. So basically he gave me a coconut of great potential. Sorry that I didn't write this from a DM's perspective.
Not while I was DMing, but my favorite useless magic item to this day is the Boots of Quick Step. Once per turn, you may click your heels as an action. To gain an action. It resulted in my character beginning each of his turns clicking his heels. It was marvelous.